Hey everyone, quick announcement. Each week, I try to bring you an episode to the show that offers something for everyone. It might be a training tip, insight into a world or national champion's life and how they got to where they are, or it might just be talking sports, the shooting sports in particular, for entertainment purposes. At the bottom of each of my episodes, you will find a Koji link to my website where you can find sponsors, links to guests, things of that nature. Currently, there are three sponsors: Laser Wrap, Gun Butter Lubrication, and now Aim Size Products. I will be putting out a specific episode about Aim Size and their products. But by using the links provided, you indirectly support the podcast without any additional cost to you. As a matter of fact, you typically save money by following those links. They'll give you a discount, and then they'll send a little bit my way just to kind of help with the podcast. The discount link for Hoist is included. However, I don't get anything from Hoist, but I believe in their product, and I feel it's a hydration product for you, which I highly recommend, especially shooting matches in the summertime where it's hot and humid. Now, if you don't use any of the products listed, there is still a way to support the podcast by using the tip button on the Koji link. It surely isn't required. None of this is required, but it is greatly appreciated. I'm trying to make the podcast as professional as possible, which does take time, a lot of time, and money. You can use the link to email me as well, whether you have suggestions for guests or whatever, comments, feedback. Regardless of whether you use a sponsor link or not, I still hope you enjoy the show. Please like it, share it, and give it a 5-star rating if you're so inclined. Thanks. Welcome to this week's edition of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. This week's guest comes from the hot and humid Southeast. He took a leave of absence for a period of time, but he's back. He's a USPSA Grandmaster in production. He was on the Super Squad in 2020, where this podcast was actually born, firearms instructor, and most recently, he was an instructor at the 2023 PSTG Summit. So without any further ado, I need you to join me in welcoming Tyler Grizzly Adams Turner to the show. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing good.
That beard, man, that is epic.
Yeah. I think it's kind of displacing the hat. You know, I was known for wearing the hat for a while. I think the beard is what people
Like the straw hat?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that hat. I've got something similar, but it's canvas from old canvas trucks back in like the 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. You mentioned the hot and humid South. That's a real thing. So the hat comes in handy.
Yes, it does. If you would, take a moment and introduce yourself.
Well, hey, everybody. Tyler Turner. I am from the North Georgia area. I've been shooting USPSA. Gosh, I may be in this may be my 10th year participating, and primarily low cap, a production guy. I've done some dabbling with CO, but yeah, that's about it. I think probably more guys in the Southeast know who I am. I don't know if I have that name recognition in other parts of the country.
Yeah, well, you've been on a few other podcasts.
Yeah.
So I think you've had some exposure out there. So that then they may not know you well, but
Right.
they know of you. All right. So it sounds like you listened to the podcast, so you know the toughest questions are right up front.
Oh, and I prepared.
I like it.
Came prepared.
I like it. All right. Favorite movie?
So it came down to two Christopher Nolan movies, Inception and Interstellar. But Interstellar edges out Inception by just a hair. But really, anything by Christopher Nolan, it's good to go in my book.
So are you like a sci-fi guy then?
I like sci-fi. His stuff, everything he does is, it's just enough of a brain bender, but it's like not totally inaccessible. unless you're talking about his movie Tenet. Did you see that?
I did not.
Okay. So it was like way inaccessible, and I didn't like that. But
Oh,
Interstellar blends like this fascination with space and like mystic forces and alien forces and everything. It's just, oh, I love it so much.
okay.
Great
All right.
acting.
Now I have found that there aren't. It's it's a 50-50 prospect as to whether people read anymore or not. If you do read, what's your favorite book?
Yeah, I don't read nearly as much as I would like to or really want to, but this I am going to cheat on. I have to cheat. I'm going to give you two because I couldn't pick one. First is Catch 22 by Joseph Heller, and the second one would be To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
Ooh, a classic.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
wow. I take it you read that when you were younger?
Uh, I I've read Catch 22 several times, like maybe starting in high school. I read To Kill a Mockingbird in college, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Now I've heard of Catch 22. I'm trying to remember. Oh, okay. A war novel.
Yeah, it's like a war satire. It's actually an anti-war novel,
Okay.
depending on who you ask. But the
All
satire.
right.
So Catch 22. Here's how it's at. Catch 22, perfect satire. To Kill a Mockingbird, just the perfect novel. Period. The dialogue, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Better than two alphas.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Your favorite gun and caliber, and as you probably know, they don't have to be linked together.
Right. I still. This is kind of the easy option, but I got to say the Gen 5 Glock 34 and 9 millimeter.
Okay. Now, why the Glock 34?
Well, I came up on Glocks specific, and when I got started in shooting, I've shot a Glock and a Glock 34 primarily, my whole career. Um, they fit me really well. Everyone complains about the ergos on a Glock 2x4, but I don't know. Maybe I just have bricks for hands, but they fit me really well. And they're cheap enough. And the Gen 5 specifically, it was it was the first one in a while that was really worthy of like a generational update. Calling itself a generation. The Glock Gen 5 guns are really really good.
Now, this is my Canic
Yeah.
steel. But this is the part that gets me with the Glock is the grip angle. So what I find is like it's not a natural angle for my wrist.
Right.
So it takes me a longer time to get accustomed to that
Right.
presentation, you know?
Yeah, and I think it helps a lot. If you started on Glocks,
Okay.
you don't know anything differently. If you started on a 1911 pattern or Canic, M&P, something else.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
1911.
Yep. But I'll tell you, speaking of the Canic, those guns, the value for those guns, if I were starting today or if I were talking to someone who wanted to get started in this, that's it. Period. The end. Like, don't consider anything else. Don't do anything else except get that Canic Rival Steel.
Oh,
What
wow.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty remarkable what you get for the price, and the triggers are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I definitely, that's the first time I picked one up at a Cabela's, I was like, what's this Canic thing? I've never heard of it before in my life. And I was like playing with it. I'm like, whoa, this is a pretty good, pretty decent gun.
Yeah.
So I was pretty impressed myself. So,
Well, several years ago, before anyone knew what Canic was, some guy at a local was like, "Hey, feel this thing." So what is that? It's some Turkish gun. It's like, okay, okay. But I took it over to the safe area, and it's like, so you've worked this thing over pretty well, right? Like you've spent a lot of time and probably money on this trigger. He's like, that is a stock trigger. It's like, I don't believe you.
Oh,
Because even the early ones, like the TP9 or what, I'm not familiar with all of them, but
right.
even the pre rival models, they had great triggers. But yeah, great guns, great guns.
And we'll come back to something you said there. So let me write this down. There we go. All right. Now this is where I'm hitting you with that question.
All right.
So for the audience, I did give Tyler this question just before we went live, so he hasn't had it very long. But the fifth question is tailored for you, and as it reads, I know that at times you've voiced your disapproval of the way things are going in the USPSA, as have several people. I personally sent a letter to all of the board members. And I got some phone calls back and had some discussion about what I sent. So that's not singling anybody out. And I also know, you're not running for an area director or president or anything like that. But if you were, what would be your campaign platform?
Well, I've thought about this. I've kind of created platforms in my head before. It's like, what, if I were to run, or if I run at some future point, like what would be the basis, or what kind of candidate would I be? And I think you're not going to elect someone like me because of business experience. I have an 800 something credit score, but I don't have, apart from that,
Okay.
I don't handle lots of money. So it's not that. And as an aside, I don't think that's, we've tried this before with other candidates in other areas where, you got that business experience. You got to run this as a business. I actually don't think that's the way to go. But in any case, back to me. Someone I would run, number one, and someone would vote for me, number two, if they were interested primarily in the sport itself, not the organization, not the business side, not the money side, which all bores me to tears. And we've put an inordinate amount of influence and talk about over the last several years. I would run, and someone would vote for me if I did run, to safeguard and protect the sport. And by that I mean rule stability, making appropriate and rational rules, at least maintaining equipment rules, if not rolling some of them back to some rational basis. Scaling down the number of divisions that we have, and generally making sure that we're making the sport excellent. I said this on Ben Berry's podcast, which is, when you are excellent, you have an excellent product or an excellent service, you create your own demand. All the talk about growing the sport, to me, just is backwards. If we ensure that our product, I don't like talking those terms, but it's shorthand, whatever. Our product, what we offer, is excellent. The competition and the matches are excellent. The people we have in the sport are excellent, which they are by and large. But we create our own demand. We create our own organic growth. This overarching emphasis on growth. How many people can we stack in a match? How high can we inflate our membership rolls to be as backwards and probably counterproductive? So I would run as the sport guy.
Okay.
Not the org or business guy.
And I do agree with you that If you have a great product, they will come.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
like, so I couldn't agree more. And I would also even go as far as to say we have 20,000 active members. There are some very good business minds out there that we could tap into that I'm sure they wouldn't mind volunteering some time to help.
Right. And that
So,
that would be, if I were to run, that would be my pitch. Is, look, I don't have business experience per se, but I'm smart enough to be able to speak to people who do know that and interpret advice and seek competent advice. I can read a spreadsheet if I have to. Numbers make my eyes bleed most of the time, but I can if I'm forced to. But yeah, I think we, as an organization, and our leadership is so consumed with the wrong thing, the wrong focus. We have, as to your point, we have a supply side problem, not a demand problem. We, at least where I'm at, and I know in other
here
places in the
too.
country,
Yeah.
yeah, we have too few matches to serve too many people that want to come. Now, you could say that's a good problem, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But like I said, we need more ranges. We need more matches. We need not to be burning out the volunteers that we have now. More than one really, more than one hotbed of USPSA in various regions has burned out because you burned your MD out and didn't have a replacement ready to go. So
Right.
it's not we don't have a growth problem. We definitely have a supply problem right now, and it's only going to get worse. I'm worried.
Right.
That's just my
Yeah.
take.
I'm an hour south of DC, and
Yeah.
I mean the local match here fills up in about 8 minutes. So
Yeah.
if you're not there to sign up, you're waiting for the next one, which could be an hour away or whatever, and then that one fills up, and
Right.
so it's a never-ending problem. Now, did you grow up in Georgia?
Yeah. Born and raised.
Okay, so did you grow up then around guns and hunting?
Yeah. It's a pretty typical story. It's been told here with you many times before. Yeah, you're exactly right though. It was more a focus on hunting. So guns were a means to an end. You got to
Right.
play with guns. You got to shoot guns when you went hunting. And so I grew up really liking hunting because I got to tote a gun around. It was much later that I realized you could actually have fun with guns, and not freeze your ass off in the woods in
Right. And
December.
come back with
So
nothing.
exactly right. So I I haven't been hunting in a while because if you go hunting, there's a chance you get to shoot a gun. You go to the match, you're guaranteed to get to shoot the gun. And so,
Yeah, there's a better chance you won't be shooting anything.
right, right,
And then even if you do shoot, it's typically one or two pulls of the trigger and that's it.
yep,
So
yep. So
now,
I grew up in the woods and hunting white-tailed deer, hunting squirrels, you know, all the stuff you would expect from a little hillbilly boy like me.
now, how at what point did you find competition shooting?
Well, I shot my first USPSA match in 2014. Yeah, 2014. But I don't know how it's sort of a progression, it's sort of a sequence of events that led me to that. I don't know how deep you want to go down that rabbit hole, but
Yeah, wait, it's up to you.
yeah.
I'm
So
game.
yeah, so I had a buddy, and well, really him and his brother, and they always had cool stuff. Um, they had like AR-15s before anyone else. I remember the first time I saw an AR-15, and I'm growing up with bolt action 30-06 hunting rifle, growing up with break action 20 gauge or 410 for squirrels. It's like first time I saw an AR-15, and he was just carrying it around. It's like, is that yours? It's like, yeah. It's like, is that legal to have? Like, I was like, is that legal? It's like, yeah. What are you talking about? And so that piqued my interest, because that was just my first exposure to like black rifles and handgun. Never touched a handgun. Never touched a
Oh,
handgun
wow.
until I was like 20 years old. It just just wasn't what we had. Wasn't what we as a family were into. But that really piqued my interest. The Obama years came around. Decided I need a black rifle, of course. But I started acquiring guns, acquiring handguns. I was awful. I was terrible. I couldn't hit a pie plate like at 7 yards. So it's like both for rifle and pistol, I started to realize, you grow up hunting, you grow up, shooting in the backyard, and you think you know how to shoot. And I kind of realized that I didn't. So there's actually a program. Are you familiar with uh, what's it called? Appleseed.
I've heard of it, but I'm not really familiar with it.
So I went to an Appleseed shoot. It combines like rifle shooting fundamentals and Revolutionary War history. It's really cool. If you haven't been to an Appleseed shoot, I'd recommend going checking it out. But I got involved in that. I was working on getting my rifleman patch, and that I think that was the breakthrough that kind of taught me there's more to do with guns than just either sitting in a tree stand or plinking in the backyard. There's a progression to this. You can enhance your skills, and so got started in that, and just I think it was a post on AR15.com. No, that was the other thing. At this time, like I was a forum nerd. Like I collected guns and collected optics and like posted pictures and talked about guns online. I didn't really do a whole lot of shooting.
Okay.
And it was always sort of dissatisfying. It's like there's got to be something more. I just didn't have the presence of mind to go seek out that something more until I kind of fell into my first USPSA match. But somebody on the Georgia forum said, "Hey, there's this shoot at the gun range this Saturday. Anyone else from the forum want to go?" It's like, "I'll go. I'll check it out." So I had my Molly battle belt with Safariland level 3 and a Glock 19, and went out there and I shot all alphas for the match.
Okay.
Not the stage. I shot all alphas for the match. And I finished up. I was like, I just showed these guys. Like, I just did something here. Like, I was expecting a pat on the back or something. And then I looked at results. I was like, I don't know, third from last. I was like, how can this be? This makes no sense. I shot all the points. And then some guy was like, yeah, it's a timed event. Like, it's points divided by time. It's like, okay. So that's I don't know anyone else who could say that. They shot all alphas for their entire first match.
Yeah, I definitely didn't. So, but it sounds like you have the same humbling experience we've all had.
Yeah, I was humbled. That's for sure.
Oh, goodness.
That's for sure.
So, was that Glock the first pistol you had bought, or?
Yeah. That was the first pistol I ever bought was Glock 19, and I was 20 years old. I could buy it when I was 20 because it was face-to-face sale. That was the first time that's the first time that I can remember ever holding a gun. Is when I met that guy in the Bass Pro parking lot.
Oh, okay.
Like, had no idea what I was doing, no idea whatsoever. But over time, after having that experience with the rifle through the Appleseed program, I was like, okay, there's a concrete set of steps you can do to make yourself better with a rifle. There has to be the same for pistol. So I started watching YouTube and practicing. In a manner of speaking, practicing. I'd watch YouTube, like pick up a Shannon Smith video here, Ron Avery video here. It's like, okay, so this is how I grip. Okay, okay. So so the object is to pull the trigger straight back and not like influence it left or to the right. Okay, okay. So I taught myself like grip and trigger control, but I didn't have any exposure, any ability to do like high speed shooting or any sort of rapid shooting. I went from at least not being able to hit the pie plate at 5 or 7 yards to being able to shoot accurately. I was just very slow.
Okay. I mean, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
When they use the turtle versus the rabbit
Oh,
comparison,
yeah.
the turtle. Okay.
Yeah, that's me all the way.
Now, what made you buy a Glock? Was it based on, you said you were on forums. Did you just read like that's the gun to have, or?
Yeah, it's still said today, the Glock 19 is like the perfect do-it-all pistol. I still tend to believe that, it's the perfect. It can be concealed, it's not so small that, you can't get a full firing grip. It really is probably the perfect compromise pistol if you could only own one. So I think it was probably reading forums constantly that led me to the Glock 19. Now, I didn't stop there. When I realized that I couldn't shoot, I was like, well, a different gun will cure this problem. So I went through like bought an M&P compact and then a full size and then an H&K P30 and who knows what else. There were several that I went through, like hunting for performance through gear and guns.
Did you keep any of those, or did you like sell them and buy something different?
I didn't have any money then, so if one came in the door, one had to go out the door. So
Okay.
one at a time.
Yeah.
And then I ended, coming full circle, got another Glock 19. So that's what I stuck with for a long while.
So were you like everybody else then after that first match? You're like, oh, I've got to do this more.
I would say after the first few, in that first 6 months, I didn't buy a membership right away or anything, because I didn't really have a concept of the classification system. Didn't know that I even wanted to be classified. I enjoyed my time, and as I got to know the guys and made friends, it wasn't immediate, but it was fairly soon thereafter. In the first, I would say after the first 2 or 3, 4 matches, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Now, at what point did you go, okay, now I want to be a GM, I want to do this, and I want to do that? And did it become more serious than just a weekend fun event for you?
Yeah, and I can point to 2 specific kind of triggers that really pushed that. The first thing was, it was probably within my first 5 or 6, 7 matches, and a guy on the range, and he doesn't shoot anymore. I don't know his name. I was just talking to a buddy about this, trying to figure out who this guy was, but he's like, he just happened to be talking to me in the squad. He's like, you ever check out any of Ben Steger's stuff? It's like, no, I don't know. Who is that? He's like, oh, he's a GM guy, really good shooter. He's wrote a dry fire book and a live fire book. I was like, okay, cool. I'll check it out. So I ordered the red dry fire book on Amazon, got it. It's like, man, this is good stuff. It's all laid out here. Like, I can do this. I've got some spare time in the evening. So I just started working in Ben's book. And the part times kept falling, getting lower and lower and lower. It's like, I'm actually improving. Like, there's a correlation between the amount of time I'm spending with the gun in my hands at home versus like what's now happening in matches. This is really freaking awesome. So I really do. I wore that red book out. I mean, that whole first year, I was in it every single day. You couldn't keep me out of the garage dry firing. And then the second thing that happened, I'm a slow learner. Okay, I must just be a slow learner. But after about a year in, I had no concept of shooting major matches. They had tried to talk me into shooting the state match that year. I was like, nah, I'm still, learning my way. I'm not good enough to shoot the state match. I think I'll skip it. But the Alabama state match came up in, I think, March or April of 2015, and we had just shot the local match. Alabama was the next weekend. We were sitting at the Mexican restaurant after having just shot the local match. We're like, you need to shoot Alabama. It's like, I don't know, guys. Like, it's next week. I don't feel like I'm prepared. Like, I'm not ready for that. It was just a whole different world for me. It's like, I don't think so. And then I drove home, thought about it. It's like, whatever. Everyone else is going, so I guess I'll tag along. So I decided, like, the week before the match, like, that, okay, I'll sign up for Alabama. Went and I won my class. And I was, the atmosphere and the pressure, and Savigny was at that match. Tyler Ingram was at that match. These are guys that were gods to me.
Right.
And seeing them shoot, just being in that heightened competitive atmosphere, it spoke to me. It's like, yes. And that's, if there were any doubts at all that I wanted to do this before, it was all over that point. That, for whatever reason, just lit a fire under me. And I said, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. I love this. I want to be as good as I possibly. I want to shoot every major match I possibly can. So that changed things, and then it was the next step up. There's a life outside of shooting local matches, and just kept. I had no real goal for, like, moving up in class or even, like, winning. I was just having so much fun, like, getting better and climbing up the ladder at the local matches. It kind of, all those milestones, major match win or GM or anything like that. It just kind of happened as a side effect or byproduct of training so much. When I started, I never, it just wasn't a thought in my head, oh, GM. But as you get closer and closer, it's like, oh, this is attainable, you know. This is something that an average guy on a budget, and something that can happen. It's like, yeah,
I kind of feel like it's the if I had to choose two tracks, one like focus on getting GM, or two focus on getting better and let the cards fall where they will as I make progress. I kind of, that's the track I would take,
yeah,
because I kind of feel like I like that byproduct of, as you improve, you see your place change, you start achieving more and more. It's not just about the classification, which is nice. You
hmm
can see where you rank with other people, but I feel like there's more to it if you're seeing that improvement in the match results, you know?
hmm yeah, yeah. And I think there's, at a certain point, it's an inevitability. Like, if you're putting in that amount of time, it almost becomes inevitable to start reaching those types of goals.
Agree. It's going to happen, yeah, if you're putting in the time. Now, obviously, you started with the Red Book. You did a lot of dry fire.
Yeah.
Now, at what point did you determine you're going to have to add some stuff to your training and do a few things differently to keep progressing up the
hmm
ladder?
Yeah. Well, I got pretty far on dry fire, and I think people underestimate what can be done with dry fire. I tried to add up. I've tried to add up a few times the number of live rounds I shot, like, in a USPSA specific training context before making GM, and I best I can tell, I think I shot fewer than 10,000 rounds before making shoot 'em.
Wow.
So, if if anyone is not already a believer in dry fire, like maybe believe it, because
Yeah.
it's the real deal. Especially for the stuff that's tested heaviest in classifiers. Your manipulations, reloads, everything's generally close up. One-handed shooting to some extent. All that's really maybe best tested and best trained in dry fire. But I started to ramp up the round counts after making GM, because asking around, listening carefully when people talk on podcasts or in person or in training classes. How much are you shooting a year? What are you training on hardest in your live fire? Where are you allocating your rounds? And I became apparent pretty quickly, like that to shoot at a high, or to like maintain a high level, you have to shoot often. The gun handling and stuff, like I said, it can be tested in dry fire. It can be trained in dry fire, but the recoil management, learning how to really drive the gun, drive it fast. There's no substitute for live rounds for that sort of thing. So I don't know. Sometime probably in 2016 or 2017, I started to ramp up the round count, and I'm still not what I would call a heavy volume shooter. You know, I may have hit 20, maybe 30,000 rounds one of those years, but the backbone of the training is still live fire, I would say. Or I'm sorry, still dry
Dry
fire, I
fire.
would say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and there are definitely some things you can't do in dry fire, but I mean, Jay Beal, you, there
Yeah.
are a bunch of people out there that, got to where they are primarily by dry fire and then refine it with live fire. So it's
Right.
definitely doable.
And then I think the other driver is I learned about doubles drill. I think that was probably about the time that doubles drill was created, and that
Mm.
doubles drill is a game changer. Um, at least it was for me. The nuances of grip and really dialing that into such a minute level. I spent a lot of rounds on doubles. I still do.
Now, okay, so that leads right into something with you saying earlier that you've started to dabble in carry optics.
Yeah.
Now, so production doubles and optics doubles, while it might be the same drill, I mean, I feel like you can see more with your dot. So uh, how do you like doing? How much have you learned doing doubles with your carry optic gun?
Yeah, I've learned a lot. Uh, I don't think I gave the dot proper credit. Uh, because for a while, people were talking about, well, should I train on a dot with the purpose of improving ultimately my iron shooting? I've been pretty dismissive of that in the past. Like, no, whatever you're going to shoot, whatever you care about, that's what you shoot all the time. I don't know, man. Like, there's a lot to be learned from shooting a dot, not just doubles, but in everything. And this year, going back and forth between them, I think the biggest thing is there are fewer distractions with the dot. There's no front sight post and no rear blade like obstructing your view of the target. And so when I went back to irons after having spent, a fair amount of time with a dot, that was what I noticed first. It's like I've trained my eyes at this point to look at very specific points of the target. And now it's annoying to have, yeah, it's annoying to have like the outline of the sights block what I'm trying to look at this, and here you are like blocking my
You're in my
sight.
way.
Yeah, it's definitely in the way. Uh, so I think the dot's good for it's it's definitely good for for learning target focused shooting or verifying. I thought, and to some extent I did shoot target focus with irons. I realized that there are some scenarios or some distances at which I was switching back subconsciously to a sight focus.
Like
So
your longer, more difficult shots, I
yeah,
assume?
or
Okay.
something, a really tight partial, something perceived to be
Okay.
difficult, you switch back and only realize it after the fact. But yeah, the dot's been really good. It's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot about vision and picking specific points, uh, similar to target focus. I thought I was picking specific points. What I'm really doing is I'm conscious of the A zone, and so I would basically align the iron sight, the front and rear sight, in between the perfs of the A zone and call it good. Well, that's not really picking an aim point. You're picking. How would you say that? It's an area, but it's not a point. Shooting a dot really drives home the emphasis on picking specific aim points, and that was good.
I feel like now, when I started this, I was already in my early 50s. I didn't find practical shooting until much later in life.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, these are reading glasses. I can do anything beyond my laptop where you're at right now is perfectly clear. Everything from my laptop in is not.
Right.
So I wear these so that everything within arm's reach is clear. So, I have that. Okay, if I want to focus on iron sights, I can, but then I got nothing out here, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But I've shot enough iron sights before this that I feel like with iron sights, it's more you have an acceptable sight picture, and that's what you're looking for. Versus now, when I shoot a dot, I'm like, I can look for, as I've said on other ones now, I'll create, if I come across a target in a match that I haven't, like one time I shot, maybe it was, I don't know if it was Area 8 or just up at Shadowhawk. It was at Shadowhawk Defense in a match, and they had taken IPSC targets and turned them a certain direction. I was like,
Right.
well, so I had to walk down there, and I'm like, where in the hell am I shooting this target at? I'm like, all right, right there. So now when I dry fire, I'm like, every target I see, I'm like, where exactly is my spot? But I don't feel like I could do that as well with iron sights.
Right. Yeah, especially if your eyes or your focal depth is having to compete.
Yeah.
So if you look at a distance target and you can see that, fairly sharply, is your peripheral vision good enough to see whether or not the iron sights are in alignment?
It's still blurry enough that I probably have to come back about 10%, maybe
Okay.
15% off that target to be able to make sure that that front sight post is within
Right.
the rear. So I still do have to back it off a little bit because it will just be so blurry at times. I'm like, that's just unacceptable.
Right. Yeah. The reason I ask is, if you're truly shooting target focus, everyone's sights are going to be blurry. But I wanted to
Right.
know, like, to what degree are yours blurry? Are they
Yeah.
blurry like because it's a vision issue, or is it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it
No,
is.
I'm tracking with you.
And that's where, I know a lot of people don't like the dots, but the dots in this situation actually do help
Right.
because they stand out so much. They're much easier to confirm in the peripheral vision that, okay, they're except, I see three, I'm good.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and two, who cares? It's it's not great if the rear sight and the front sight are so blurry that you can't tell you know if they're aligned. Who cares if the dot itself is a little fuzzy because you're going to shoot the streak anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, do you see yourself shooting more and more carry optics, or is this just from you wanting to learn more about it that you're doing it?
Well, it was really out of necessity that I started, and that I've shot as much as I have. You know, my
You need
love
my
is
reading
for.
glasses?
I'm sorry.
You need my reading glasses?
No, different kind of necessity. So I want to shoot where the heat is. I want to shoot against the best, and I want to have competition. And it's sad. I hate it. My love is for low cap, minor, irons, and
Okay.
probably in that order. Yeah, low cap, minor, irons. That's the aspect of the game. That's the challenge that I like. It's just it's always interesting. How do you solve the puzzle when you're light on rounds? You got to be accurate.
Right.
And iron sights are a challenge unto themselves.
Or
But
you're going to have another reload.
yeah, yeah. So I've always liked that about the sport. That's what tickles my fancy. But I've gone to the dot and I've shot some CO just to have more competition. That's where everyone's at. So you got to go where the heat is. Um, and it's been fun. It's been fun. It's been a nice change of pace. I just if Here's what I would say. I wish everyone was shooting production or single stack, then I would shoot production and single stack, or production, and compare
Right.
myself to single stack. But everyone's shooting CO, so that's where I got to go. That's what I got to do.
Yeah, it
But
seems like anything with a dot seems to be very, very popular.
oh yeah, dot and high cap. It's
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
now I see it as playing the game on easy mode. You know,
Okay.
you know.
It's a cheat code. I got it.
Yeah, yeah. When you're playing
Now,
Grand Theft Auto, you want all the bullets, don't you? You want the rocket launcher,
of
don't you?
course. Now,
Uh,
would you still consider production and carry optics to be low cap if the rules were changed to align with IPSC and you had 15 rounds?
yeah, that'd be. I think it'd be low cap relative to the other divisions for sure. IPSC's it's a little different just because standard. They don't have. I think those guys are getting like 18, maybe. I don't want to speak too
Yeah, I'm not
definitively on that. I
I'm not
think
sure.
with their limitations, they're lower cap. So depending on where you draw the line, it's still lowish cap, I would say. And at this point, I like 10 rounds. That's my preference.
Okay.
If they are just hell bent on changing it, I hope it goes to 15 rounds. But frankly, with all the other differences between IPSC production, USPSA production, it's just they're not the same division at all.
They're definitely not. Yeah, there are so many differences that it's not the same.
Yeah, I mean,
But
sorry, dude.
good. No, good.
I was just gonna say, I think the likelihood, if they change it, I think the likelihood is that they either go to a factory capacity or to some length restriction, like a 140, because we're well. I don't know how spicy I'm supposed to be.
You can be as spicy as you want. It doesn't matter.
If here's my thing, if we're too stupid to count to 10, we're definitely too stupid to count to 15. Take that how you want.
There you go. I had a question and I lost it. So are you going to shoot Iron Sight Nationals this year?
Yes, I am. I'm pretty much now. I may sprinkle in some CO at locals the rest of the year, but I'm pretty much committed to production. I want to at least make an honest run at a world shoot spot for the production team. I so I have some misgivings about South Africa, but
Oh,
I would at least like to have the right of first refusal. But
okay.
it's going to be tough. Production's probably going to be the toughest team to get a spot to this time.
You think so?
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. I mean, there's some
Okay.
heavy hitters going for the production team, so I'm going to make an honest effort of it. We'll see what happens.
Now, I feel like some of them, I mean, obviously Mason would be,
Yeah.
but I don't know where Jacob is gonna
So
try.
now I haven't talked to Jacob. I don't know. I may be speaking out of turn, but if I remember correctly, he signed up for production optics for U.S. IPSC Nationals. So that I'm taking that as an indication that
I would too.
he's looking at that team. But like I said, I don't know.
Yeah, and I see, like when I talked to Nils, he wasn't. I don't know that that's his focus. I think his focus is going to be optics of some point or of some part.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who all will be
Yeah. So I
do.
would say Mason, of course, is a mortal lock. Sal Luna is a mortal lock.
Okay.
There was somebody else. Can't remember off the top of my head, but I mean, there are a ton of heavy hitters going for it. I think Stephen Lutman, probably, maybe Matt Nash, Brian Giovanini, all those guys. I mean, it's gonna be
Okay.
tough. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
It will be. It'll definitely be fun to sit back and watch and see
Yeah.
how it all plays out.
Oh, it'll be nerve wracking in my shoes, but you'll have a great time.
Yeah, exactly. Be able to, hey, so this guy did this.
Yep.
Makes it easy for me. Now, so from the time you started getting serious, because you said about 2015, you got Ben's Red Book, his dry fire book.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2020, you were on the Super Squad.
Mm-hmm.
So was there anything, let me back up. How did you feel when you found out you were going to be on the Super Squad?
Yeah. So I don't. I've told this story before on a training group, but Joel Park told me I was on the Super Squad. I had no idea. The first
Oh,
year I made it, I had no idea. Because I just signed up with my buddies. We were squatted. We were ready to go. It was either the week or it was like a week or 10 days before we left for nationals. And I just thought I was going to shoot with the local Georgia boys. That's what I was prepared to do. And Joel sent me a message. He's like, "Hey man, congratulations, Super Squad," or something like that. It's like, what are you talking about? I didn't know if he was messing with me or he knew something I didn't know, but I got like super nervous. And it turned out he knew something I didn't know. He had been on practice score and he saw I had been moved. Now, bear in mind, no one told me. No one from USPSA.
they just
I didn't.
moved you.
They just moved me. I was prepared to show up at at nationals, and just go to my squad. And what would have happened, I guess, if Joel hadn't told me, is I would have just shown up there, and hey, you're not on the pad. It's like, but no, I figured out like a week before or something like that. I was going to go to national. That I was on the Super Squad, and I kind of had like my mental freak out. I allowed myself like, I don't know, like 15 minutes to just kind of like freak out really good and then get out of my system. And it's like, changes nothing. You've been training, changes absolutely nothing. Doesn't change the stages, doesn't change, your preparation. You're just going to have different squad mates. That's all.
Until next time.
Don't be a little bitch.
Yeah.